A lot of people think anxiety always needs a visible reason. But sometimes anxiety shows up long before the conscious mind understands what's actually being triggered internally. That's why some people suddenly feel restless, on edge, emotionally unsafe, or overwhelmed, without fully understanding why. Because anxiety isn't always created by the present moment. Sometimes it's the nervous system reacting to patterns it learned a long time ago. A tone of voice, a certain silence, distance, tension, uncertainty, disconnection, things that may seem small externally, can quietly activate emotional memories internally. And a lot of people don't even realize it's happening while it's happening. Their body reacts first. Their thoughts try to catch up afterward. That's why anxiety can feel confusing, because sometimes the mind says, nothing is wrong, while the nervous system quietly feels like danger is approaching anyway. And over time, people start becoming frustrated with themselves because they can't always logically explain what they're feeling. But emotional conditioning doesn't always communicate logically. Sometimes the body remembers stress that the conscious mind minimized years ago. That's why emotionally overwhelmed people sometimes feel anxious in situations that appear completely normal externally. Because anxiety isn't always about the current moment. Sometimes it's about what the current moment reminds the nervous system of subconsciously. Believe it or not, many people become so used to living in survival mode emotionally that calmness itself starts feeling unfamiliar. That's why some people become anxious when life finally becomes peaceful. Not because peace is dangerous, but because their nervous system became more familiar with emotional tension than emotional safety. What happens when somebody spends so much time emotionally surviving that safety itself starts feeling suspicious? That's one of the strangest parts of anxiety. Sometimes silence feels louder than chaos. Sometimes peace feels uncomfortable. Sometimes stability feels temporary. Sometimes calmness feels like the moment before something bad happens. Because the nervous system starts anticipating emotional disruption constantly. Like someone staring at dark clouds waiting for thunder even after the storm already passed. And over time, unpredictability can train the body to constantly anticipate emotional disruption. That's why some people overthink small changes, panic during silence, fear abandonment suddenly, or emotionally spiral when communication patterns shift slightly. Their nervous system starts trying to predict danger before danger fully appears. Because anxiety often becomes hypervigilance emotionally. The constant scanning for rejection, distance, criticism, conflict, or emotional withdrawal. And eventually the mind becomes exhausted from constantly preparing for emotional pain that hasn't even happened yet. That's why anxiety can quietly drain people mentally even during normal daily life. Because their nervous system rarely fully relaxes. In many ways, anxiety can become like driving while constantly checking every mirror expecting an accident. Even when the road is clear, the body still feels braced for impact. And the difficult part is, a lot of emotionally anxious people look completely functional externally. They go to work, hold conversations, smile normally, handle responsibilities. Meanwhile, internally, their mind may constantly feel overstimulated and emotionally tense underneath the surface. That's why anxiety often becomes invisible suffering. And unfortunately, many emotionally anxious people become frustrated with themselves because they believe, I shouldn't feel this way. Nothing is even wrong right now. But healing often starts once people understand that anxiety isn't always irrational weakness. Sometimes it's a nervous system that spent too long learning how to emotionally survive uncertainty. And over time, the body can start responding to emotional possibility as if it's emotional danger. That's why healing anxiety usually isn't just about thinking positive. It's about slowly teaching the nervous system that safety is possible again. That silence doesn't automatically mean abandonment. That distance doesn't automatically mean rejection. That uncertainty doesn't automatically mean disaster. Because emotionally safe experiences repeated consistently can slowly retrain the nervous system over time. Anxiety is similar to a smoke alarm becoming overly sensitive. At one point, it probably protected someone emotionally. But eventually the alarm starts reacting to burnt toast like the entire house is on fire. That's what emotional hypervigilance can become. Protection that never fully learned when danger ended. And strangely enough, many people spend years trying to control anxiety mentally, without realizing their body still feels emotionally unsafe underneath the surface. That's why healing often requires more than logic. It requires emotional safety, consistency, self-awareness, and nervous system regulation repeatedly over time. Because anxiety usually softens when the body slowly stops expecting emotional danger everywhere. And eventually, people start realizing something powerful. Their anxiety was never always trying to destroy them. Sometimes it was simply trying to protect them, long after protection was still necessary.